exploring mental health and spirituality. I've got two professionals here with me today. This is Akua. She's an occupational therapist and she's got experience with working with mental health patients. And then I've got an advanced mental health practitioner called Jillian. Both of them will be exploring our mental health and spirituality topic with us this afternoon. So you're both welcome to Travel Together Conversations.
Thank you, Blessing.
So I think we will just go straight to the questions because we've got a lot to talk about today. So our first conversation will be around coping with mental health challenges. So we've got people that struggle with anxiety and depression. Some of them are searching for meaning, some of them are searching for comfort. Some people explore personal reflection, some people go nearer to their community, and some people go into therapy, and people do all sorts just to resolve their low mental health crisis. So as mental health professionals, how would you help individuals to explore coping mechanisms that align with their values and their beliefs?
So just want to say thank you for having me here today. I think one of the most important things is actually being open and talking about mental health. I think over the years, unfortunately, has been a lot of stigma attached to mental health. People have felt less able to be open and share that they're actually struggling. So I think one of the big things is actually having those conversations. Having those conversations will also encourage other people who may be struggling as well to also be open about it, I feel. I think it's important to remember that actually so many people in society struggle with mental health, both in the church and outside of the church. 1 in 4 people will have a mental health illness at some stage over the course of their lifetime, and 1 in 5 will suffer from depression or anxiety. So I think having those conversations is a big opening thing. I think it's also important to be connected. That connection is really important, so for that person to actually feel a part of society and be a part of things, whether it be in groups or things you can get involved with. I'm not sure what your activities.
So I'm going to come at this from a non-traditional approach and with a very non-traditional view. I believe that most depression or anxiety, especially the generalized types of depression and anxiety, are forming, as you said, from a lack of connection with yourselves, with the community around you, with a sense of spirituality. And so I would really recommend to people to really look into what do they enjoy doing? What do they enjoy doing that can connect them to others? What do they enjoy doing that can connect them to their sense of spirituality? What do they enjoy doing that can connect them to themselves? So it might be, for example, just something small like, you get a photo board of like all the times that you've been on holiday with family, with friends, or even in those times of, I've got one of those in my house, for example, so for even in those times when you can be isolated, you've always got this visual representation of good times that can fill you with that sense of community, that sense of love. So yeah, in terms of the advice that I would give to people, it would be to really search for moments of connection with yourself, with your sense of spirituality, or with the community around you, and the things that you enjoy doing to lift that positive effect, to lift that sense of positive effect that often is lacking in moments of depression or moments of anxiety.
I think that's a really good point actually, because it's useful for us all, even if you don't have a clinical diagnosis of depression or struggle with anxiety. I think it's a very good tip that all of us can use, because at various times in our lives we can all feel anxious about things or depressed, even if it's not clinical. So I think that's a really good tip that probably everyone can endorse, really.
Yeah. Thank you. And thinking of stigma, because a lot of people are kind of concerned about the stigma around mental health, and that's why they hesitate or they refuse to seek for professional help. So for someone who is growing up in an environment where mental health is been dismissed or misunderstood, how would professionals in your field, how would you help that sort of person to kind of seek help or kind of deviate a little bit from their own belief or their own environment and go ahead to seek supports in their mental health journey?
So I think that there are a lot of things that influence help-seeking behaviours. So it might be the fact that, yes, you've been brought up in an environment whereby nobody really sought help. It might be because of a lack of insight into the difficulties that you're facing. There's also a belief, I think within my own community, that the options for mental health treatment are too narrow in this country. So you don't really have a choice of having strength-based approaches that work on your dreams, your aspirations, your values, they don't meet you where you are currently. And it's basically going to be an option of talking therapies, and that's it. So I would say that more choice within treatment, so more complementary and alternative treatment, whether that's physical activity based, whether it's cooking classes, it's just sort of activities that you enjoy that are meaningful to you. I think a greater variety of traditional treatments and complementary and alternative treatments would be a good solution for encouraging people to engage in more help-seeking behaviours.
Yeah, I think education, again, if it's never been discussed within cultures or within families, then it's sometimes it can just be lack of knowledge about mental health. I think, as I said, over the years, it is much more recognised, and it's more spoken about in society and on the news, and even by celebrities are talking more about mental health as well. So I think it's a lot to do with education and having those conversations, those open and honest conversations, that for people it's a real struggle and it can be a real battle, but actually there is help available. But I completely agree with what you said that the treatment should be individualized. There's no one treatment that suits everyone. It should be tailored to meet people's individual choices or individual beliefs, and also with consideration to their experience as well, because our experiences shape how we cope with things and how resilient we are, and so all of those things have an impact. So I think we've moved a long way in the last number of years in terms of promoting mental health, but I think that there is still probably some stigma in certain cultures and certain communities as well, and also with certain age groups, I think is probably fair to say as well. But I think we have made a lot of progress. But to me, the 2 points I would pick on there is education and also openness and talking about it.
Yeah. I would agree that nobody would be proud of having a diagnosis of bipolar, for example, or people commonly say that, I'm depressed now and I'm anxious, but that's because I believe that the social implications of that are far less severe than if somebody says, I've got schizophrenia, by the way, I've got bipolar. So there is a degree of stigma that comes with those particular diagnoses. I would say then that would really, really make people reluctant to accept that they have that diagnosis, to seek help for that diagnosis.
In that situation, how would you encourage them in terms of seeking help? How would you encourage them or support them to still seek help, or kind of still acknowledge that they have that diagnosis and they still need support?
I mean, for me, I think it's important to remember that these diagnoses, whatever diagnosis it is, whatever mental health diagnosis it is, it doesn't define you as a person. We all have our own battles, our own struggles, whether that be with mental health issues or with physical health issues or with whatever. Everyone has their own battles. I think that it's important to remember that whatever diagnosis, it doesn't define you as a person. My advice would be, I would encourage anyone struggling with any mental illness to actually seek help, and seek help early, because I think that in not doing so, it actually can prolong the recovery journey. Again, I don't want to generalise, but depending on whatever mental health issue it is, in a lot of cases, if you don't seek help early, it can worsen, and then that can mean a longer recovery. It can also mean a poor prognosis as well, and there can be lots of different things, and it can just lead to lots and much more difficulties for that individual, where actually if the right help is available earlier, it can actually really improve that person's recovery journey and also their overall quality of life. So I would encourage early intervention.
Thank you.
I think that I would yet again go with a non-traditional approach. I might say to somebody, okay, so I'm a really big advocate for holistic medicine, and so I personally would seek to find out where there might be sort of interruptions in that person's well-being. Is it with their spiritual well-being and their connections to themselves, their connections to others, their connections to their community, their connections to God? Is it within their social well-being? Is it within their physical well-being? Is it within their psychological well-being? Is it within their social well-being? And emotional well-being. Somebody was saying to me, look, I'm so isolated, I've got no friends. I could understand that actually the social ramifications of having no friends and being isolated are severe, and there's lots of literature out there to say that it is severe. And so I would encourage that person to join some type of community, whether it's a church community, and they can church community, gym community, sporting community, so they can get that type of love, acceptance and social connections in order for them to see whether that is actually at the root of their difficulties.
Absolutely, I think that's a really good point, because that holistic approach is so important, because they're actually linked: physical, mental, social. They are all linked together. So I agree with what you said there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So some individuals have actually been taught that struggling with mental health is a sign of weakness or a lack of faith or personal failure. So how can therapists, mental health practitioners, how can you help clients to unlearn these harmful messages and develop a more compassionate view of themselves?
Whenever I was reading that particular question she sent me, Blessing, that was one that really stood out to me. I think that can be quite scary actually, and quite a really difficult thing, because again, I suppose that kind of belief can lead to more severe issues for the person if the right intervention isn't given at the right time. So I find that's quite a difficult one. I think it's important to start, obviously as professionals, that we kind of give that person education on their condition and actually what it means for them. And I think it's important for people to be aware that there's lots of different factors that can cause someone to develop a mental illness. Like there's so many things at play. It could be genetics. Some people are just genetically more at risk of developing mental health issues, whether it be due to genetics, family members having it, obviously other biological factors, there are environmental factors, it can be a lot to do with experiences that the individual has had, so there's lots of factors. Physical health issues as well, and physical health conditions can lead to a lot of mental health conditions as well. So I think it's about educating the person, but also there's a lot of family therapies out there as well, which is really important. So I would seek or encourage anyone to seek out that support, where you can also get your family involved, and they can receive the education and get to ask questions and get support from other family members that their loved ones are going through similar things. So I think it's always, if I did identify that was the case for someone, I would encourage them to actually be engaged in some of those family type therapies.
Yeah, so I can hear you saying a lot about education, so that awareness is really key for people.
It is.
And also people being open to have this conversation about their mental health challenges as well. It's really key. Have you got any to add? Thank you.
Well, not really, because it is a tough one.
Yeah.
And for example, some people may have mental health issues because of CPTSD, complex PTSD, where there have been aggressions done against them from childhood, often by parents who aren't willing to acknowledge their difficulties, and then the person has reached teenagerhood or adulthood, and they are wanting to deal with these things the way that the modern world does. They want to go to therapy. They're trying to say to their mum, "Mum, why don't you come to therapy with me?" And the mum's like, "No way." So I know that I really, really know and understand the complexities of those type of dynamics you were talking about, where, you know, within your family, within your community, it's seen as weak to have a mental health diagnosis, it's seen as a lack of resilience to have a mental health diagnosis. And so it's really tricky. And I don't really know what I would say to somebody, except to say that Oprah once said that sometimes it's not about the diagnosis, but it's about exploring what has happened to you. Because then that takes the focus away from it being a problem that I have caused or that I have got into a problem of something that has happened to me. And so that would be really the only advice I would give.
That is really profound, because it just answers it all. Because really, mental health is not a weakness.
Yes.
It doesn't show personal failure. It's not lack of faith. It doesn't mean that you're not believing or trusting in God anymore, or it doesn't make you less of a religious person. No. It isn't your fault. There are so many circumstances, so many things around your childhood or around your lifestyle, things that might have contributed to it, but it doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't define you, as Gillian has said.
And
So
if I could actually add to that as well, I actually think it takes a certain strength to actually say, you know, look, accept, and also to admit, look, maybe I am struggling in this area, I do need a little bit of help or whatever in this, or it actually takes strength to be open about that and actually start. But I think for a lot of people, you'll find that if you open and kind of start those conversations, there'll probably be so many other people that you'll come across that maybe have been struggling but have been, like, you know, too fearful maybe to say something as well. So a lot of the time you can find that's the case. But I would say, like, it's definitely not a weakness. And as I say, I would reiterate again the importance of kind of earlier intervention, the better, because the emotional trauma as well of not being able to talk about it or struggling in silence can actually worsen the problems. That's all I would say.
I think that Oprah quote was, "It's not about what's wrong with you, it's about what's happened to you." I think that's the quote she said.
That is good, yeah, good. So some people that have gone through mental health difficulties, they have learned that mindfulness is a good practice, meditation, journaling, self-reflection. These are all practices that people have been doing in recent years. Even I, in my own personal experience, have explored all this. So as professionals, are there other ways that people can manage their mental health? Are there other mental practices or other ways that people, especially people who are religious, are there other ways in which they can explore and get support in terms of their mental health? How can they explore a holistic mental wellness for themselves, besides all these ones that I've mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question again, Blessing. I think for me, I would say from the offset, the most important thing is to find something that you're comfortable with. Because if people are hesitant to get involved in whatever, like say mindfulness or whatever, people are hesitant for whatever reason, then I think that it's less likely that will work for that person. So I think the most important thing is finding something that you're comfortable with. In this day and age, obviously I think there's a vast number of things available to people. It's quite a difficult question to answer because there's guidelines on what is best for certain mental illnesses. So if we're sticking to what we're discussing, say depression and anxiety, there's a lot of talking therapies out there. I know that CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, is a very well known one and has very good success rates for people suffering with depression and anxiety. So that's definitely one that I can confidently say is a good one. And as a Christian as well, I think that Christians can get involved in that one, and it has helped many people. So I think that's one I would make mention to. But I think the key for me is making sure the person is comfortable in whatever therapy it is, or what, even if it's more holistic approach. But
yeah. I am not sure how to answer that question. I would say that, I don't know if you said breath work. Did you say breath work in that?
No, I said mindfulness, meditation, journaling.
Okay, so breath work is actually really, really important.
What is that?
Basically, what people don't realize is that your breathing regulates a lot of your physiology. And so most, in all instances of anxiety, you will find that you're like breathing and you're panicking, because your body responds to that breathing pattern. And so the thing about breath work is that you learn to understand the reaction, or how you breathe has a reaction on your physiology. And so if you really learn when you find yourself getting into such a panicked state, if you learn to recognize it and slow your breathing down, it will affect your physiology and your response to that anxiety instantly. So I would say breath work would be a really important one for you to look at.
Amazing, that is really good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I completely forgot, because I do some breathing exercises sometimes with my kids, trying to regulate their emotions. If everywhere is becoming a bit tense, I'm like, okay, it's time to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
So you breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out. You hold it for 4 seconds and then you breathe out for 4. So the 4-4-4 rule, I do that often. So that is actually a good one. I just didn't think it in the point of using it to manage your anxiety
because
as well.
with anxiety, it triggers your fight or flight response, and that's something you don't need to have triggered. And if everything is making you anxious all the time, and you are in fight or flight mode all the time, you have to start by regulating your breathing and to get yourself out of that fight or flight mode.
And I think don't give up as well. Like, I mean, because for many people that they have tried different therapies as well, and maybe the first one won't work for you, or you don't get the most out of it. So then finding something else as an alternative doesn't mean that won't work. So I would say that. And a lot of these things as well, I think it depends on the person, because just to go back to CBT, the one that I mentioned, it does require the individual themselves as well. There's quite a lot of self reflection, a lot of work to do over like the course of a week, about your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviours being all linked together. But it's I guess what I'm trying to say is that the person, there's an element of motivation definitely required in that particular one in order to get the best results, I guess. But for me, I think as well, obviously as a mental health professional, but also as a Christian, I think you mentioned but just the importance of prayer as well, and reading God's word just for comfort. But I just wanted to make it clear, God doesn't call us to an easy life. We will struggle, and we're living in a fallen world, and there's many Christians that struggle with mental health difficulties as well, and that does not mean that in any way you've done anything wrong or God loves you any less. I think it was important to really say that, because people can still really struggle with these things as Christians as well. We're not exempt, and the Bible is very clear on that we're not promised an easy life, and so I just wanted to mention that, share that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That is really key. Thank you so much. And then for in terms of looking at faith as a source of strength in recovery, because I know mental health is not like an instant recovery or something that happens as a one-off. I think it's more like a journey. It's as important as our physical health as well. So if you're looking after your physical well-being, you should also be looking after your mental well-being. So it's a continuous journey. As long as we are living, we need to keep up with these practices. And I wonder if you've got any example of how someone has any example that you can share about somebody who has used their spirituality or their beliefs or their positivity. How has this kind of influenced their mental health journey, or does it have any influence in our mental health journey at all in terms of your beliefs or your spirituality or even your positive thinking? Does that? Do you have any examples practically you can share?
I mean, 100%. I feel that they're linked. Like, you know, because I think that you know, as I say, one thing just doesn't really define us, does it? Like, I think that I mean, yes, another good question, bless you, but it's quite hard to put it into words. But I suppose in brief, what I would say is, you know, spirituality does link into all other aspects of our life. I think that we can, as a Christian, again, as I say, we can get comfort from what the Bible says in helping us through different struggles and battles, whether that be mental health or otherwise. And I think that also there's lots of other practical things that we can do in day-to-day life to help promote our mental health, or to improve, for those people that are suffering with mental health, improve symptoms, just basic things like a good, you know, lifestyle in terms of sleep, exercise, all very practical things that probably a lot of people these days do know about. But I think not neglecting these can certainly be a positive thing in helping with mental health. And also, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Well, what the traditional healthcare model in the Western world often fails to understand when they conceptualize things like mental health versus physical health is that the whole body is one. And so there's a field called psychoneuroimmunology, and it's not a new field, but it's become quite popular in recent times, and it demonstrates the links between your physical health and your mental health, and your mental health and your physical health. And it really shows that actually there are very clear links between your mood and what you're thinking and what you're telling yourself, and how happy you are with links to your how happy you are with increased mental health and increased physical health. So I think it's very, very, very important that actually when people have mental health conditions or people have physical health conditions, they look at things that are going to be meaningful to them, to make them feel fulfilled and to make them happy. And sometimes I think to myself as well that some Christians, they're so religious as such that they forget to enjoy themselves. They forget that they can sort of isolate themselves with their I don't even know what I can call it, but I would say to get out there and do stuff that makes you happy, relax, have fun, be joyful, spend time with your kids. Like, children's joy is infectious, so you should have that type of joy that you encourage with your children when they're playing about and just having fun, and that will lift your mood, that will improve your mental health, and being physical will improve your physical health also.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's about having that purpose, isn't it? And,
yes.
You know, it is so important. But I mean, I think it's just one final thought for me would be, like, no matter what we have said today, one shoe does not fit all.
Yeah.
You know, your journey is unique to you, and again, I would like to recommend any kind of particular treatment as such. I think it's important to kind of seek advice on what is the important way forward for you and your journey from professionals if that's required. But what I would say is, talk about these things, have those conversations, be open if you're struggling, you know, be a listening ear to other people that may be struggling, and kind of actually, like, just have these conversations really, and move forward with it, but and be non-judgmental in that really, because it is something that can affect any of us at any time. And I think that we might kind of message, because for some people, you know, I know I haven't mentioned this today, but for some people medication is the right way. And again, I know that can come with a lot of stigma for a lot of people as well, but for some people it is necessary, and it's important that we kind of also sort of recognise that. But again, that would need professionals to advise you on what that is, etc. But yeah, I think that's just my final thought. But I did want to just leave a couple of Bible verses that were possible.
Yeah,
that I find encouraging in terms of this topic.
Yeah, that's fine.
So one is from Isaiah 41, verse 10. So don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. So I think it's important to know that even though people can be in really dark places, obviously God still walks that journey with us, and that actually you're not on your own. And the other one was Deuteronomy 31 and verse 8. Sorry, I'm going to find that. Yeah. So it was, do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. So I think those were important verses as a Christian, no matter what we struggle with, but I hope that's encouragement to people struggling with mental health issues as well.
That is really good. Thank you so much, Julian, for sharing that.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
That's a good way for us to round up today. So thank you, ladies, for doing this with us. We really appreciate you. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Really enjoyed it.